The cry from the dumpster. It was past midnight. Rain poured down hard on the empty streets of Sector 12, the poor side of the human colony. Most people were sleeping. Only a few machines hummed quietly in the distance. Mark, a middle-aged janitor, walked slowly along the alley behind a cheap restaurant. He worked late-night shifts cleaning trash bins in backyards no one cared about. He was used to the smell, the cold, and the silence. But tonight something felt different. As he lifted a heavy trash lid, he suddenly stopped. A sound, a soft cry. It wasn't a cat. It wasn't a machine. It was a baby. He froze. The cry came again, weak, broken, full of pain. Mark dropped the trash lid and rushed toward the noise. It was coming from a large metal dumpster at the corner, half covered by a wet plastic sheet. He pulled it aside. There, deep inside, was something moving. He leaned closer. Wrapped in dirty cloth covered in slime and old food was a tiny creature. Pale skin, big dark eyes, small shaking limbs. It wasn't human. It was an alien baby. Mark's heart pounded. He didn't move for a second. He had seen alien species before. Many lived around the colony. Some worked, some begged. But this child, this was different. It was dying. Without thinking, he took off his jacket, climbed into the dumpster, and gently picked the baby up. The little creature didn't fight. It just looked at him, with eyes too tired to cry. Mark wrapped it in his jacket and held it close. "Who would do this?" he whispered. The baby gave a soft, dry cough. He looked around. The alley was empty, just broken crates, trash bags, and the cold night. But something felt, watched. He turned quickly. Nothing. Just a flicker near a broken wall, like a shadow slipping away. Was someone there? He held the baby tighter and walked quickly to his small home at the edge of the district. Inside, he placed the alien baby on a warm towel, turned on the heater, and brought out a small bottle of clean water. He dipped a cloth and gently wiped the baby's face. Bits of old food and dirt came off, revealing soft lavender-colored skin underneath. The child was beautiful, in a strange way. Thin, weak, but with long eyelashes and glowing lines on her tiny forehead. Her chest moved slowly, as if each breath took effort. Mark whispered to himself, "Hang on, little one." He searched his kitchen and found a can of protein milk. He didn't know if it was safe for alien babies, but it was better than nothing. Using a small dropper, he tried feeding her. The baby coughed at first, then sucked weakly. A few drops, then a few more. Mark let out a shaky breath. He hadn't even realized how tense he was. As the baby drank, she closed her eyes. Sleep. Safe. For now. But Mark couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. Or rather, what he thought he saw. That shadow. Those glowing eyes. Someone had abandoned her. But they hadn't left completely. They had stayed close. Watching. Hiding. Why? Who would throw their baby in the trash and still linger nearby? He looked at the sleeping child and whispered, "I'll call you Luma. You're safe now, Luma, I promise." But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. Something, or someone, was still out there. And they weren't done yet. She watches from the shadows. She had no name anymore. Once, long ago, her name meant something, on her homeworld, among her people. But now she was just a shadow, a ghost, a starving mother hiding behind buildings, hoping not to die before the sun rose. Her body shook in the rain. Her thin robe clung to her skin like paper. She pressed herself behind the broken metal fence near the alley. Her stomach growled painfully, but she ignored it. Her glowing eyes were fixed on the small house at the end of the street. He had taken her child, not to harm, not to sell, but to save. She had watched the human, tall, older, with kind eyes, find her baby in the trash and lift her gently. She had seen how he wrapped her in his jacket like she was something precious. She had followed him that night barefoot, cold, bleeding. When he opened his door, she stayed hidden behind the storage bins. She saw the light turn on. She saw him clean her, baby's face, feed her, cover her, and then she saw the baby sleep peacefully, for the first time in days. The mother pressed a trembling hand against her chest. Relief, guilt, pain, all mixed together like poison. Her lips quivered, but no sound came. Her throat was too dry to cry. She wanted to leave her baby in the trash, but she had no milk left, no strength left, no hope left. She thought it was better for the baby to die quickly in sleep than to watch her mother rot away beside her. But the human had changed that. Now, there was a chance. She didn't dare knock on his door. What if he saw her and screamed? What if he gave the baby to the colony police? They would take her away forever. No, she couldn't take that risk. So she stayed in the shadows, each night, each hour, watching. Inside the house, Mark moved slowly. He had cleaned the small guest room, placed warm blankets on the floor, and laid the alien, baby Luma, he called her, on a soft pillow. She had eaten a little, slept a lot. But she seemed stronger today. Her color had returned slightly and her hands moved more. Mark sat in the chair beside her, reading an old medical book. He didn't know anything about her species, but he was trying to learn. Every now and then he looked out the window. That strange feeling hadn't left him. The one that whispered, "You're being watched." He got up, walked to the front door, and slowly opened it. Cold wind rushed in. Darkness. Silence. Nothing. He stepped out and looked around. There was no one there. But near the trash bin, he found something odd. A small wet cloth torn and stained with a strange blue substance. Blood? He picked it up. It was soft, almost like skin. He looked around again. Still nothing. But he didn't throw it away. He took it inside. Back behind the fence, the alien mother pressed herself into the mud as Mark looked around. Her heart pounded. If he had walked just a few more steps, he would have seen her. She was too weak to run. She curled herself tightly and bit her lip to stop her teeth from chattering. She had to survive, just long enough to see her baby grow, even if it was from far away. Even if the human never knew she existed, she would stay close. Until she couldn't anymore. That night, as Mark fed Luma again, he whispered, "Someone left you. But someone is still near, isn't she?" The baby blinked at him with tired eyes. Mark looked at the door again. Then he got an idea. He stepped outside once more, walked to the trash bin, and placed a sealed bag of food beside it. Simple, warm bread and water. Then he walked away. Night swallowed him again. But the eyes in the dark didn't miss it, and the starving hands waiting behind the fence slowly, shakily, reached forward. Who's out there? The next morning, the food was gone. Mark stepped out, still half asleep, and looked toward the trash bin. The sealed packet of bread he left the night before had vanished. So had the water bottle. No crumbs, no mess. Just a quiet, clean space, as if someone took it with great care. Mark's eyes narrowed. It wasn't an animal. An animal would have torn the bag. This was someone watching. He looked around the alley. Nothing but shadows, old crates, and a cold breeze, but something in his gut told him she was still there. Inside, Luma cooed softly in her blanket. The alien baby had eaten more today, moved more, and even made a strange clicking sound with her throat. It made Mark chuckle. "You're getting stronger, little star," he said, lifting her gently. "But I think your mother's still out there, and she's scared." He paused. He didn't know why he said it out loud. Maybe to calm himself, maybe to feel less alone, or maybe because the air around his house felt different these days, like someone was holding their breath right outside. Later that evening, Mark did something strange. He brought out another meal, warm soup, flatbread, and a small note written in simple words. "She's safe. I will not hurt her. You don't have to hide." He placed the food on a clean towel beside the same trash bin. Then he turned off the porch light and sat quietly by the window. He waited. An hour passed. 2. Rain started falling again, gently tapping. On the glass, then movement. A thin figure stepped out from behind the broken fence. She moved slowly, crawling more than walking. Her arms shook as she picked up the food. Her long silver hair clung to her skin. Her robe was ripped and soaked. She didn't read the note, maybe she couldn't. But she pressed the warm container to her chest like it was treasure. She was too weak to eat there. So she vanished back behind the wall, disappearing into the dark. Mark watched in silence. "Heart heavy, she's dying," he whispered. "She's still holding on only for that child." That night, Luma cried for the first time. Loudly, like a healthy baby. Mark jumped up, startled but relieved. He held her close and rocked her gently. "Easy now. Easy." She quieted quickly, but her cry had reached someone else too. Far outside, the alien mother froze when she heard it, a real cry, a full cry. Her baby was alive and strong. Tears welled up in her glowing eyes. She covered her mouth and sobbed silently behind the fence, her body curling into itself. The next morning, Mark took a bold step. He stepped outside with Luma in his arms. He didn't speak loudly. He just said soft and clear, "I know you're there. I'm not here to take her from you. I just want her to live, and you too." He left again, this time a small blanket, more food, and a bottle of vitamins from the colony's supply store. And he added something else. A photo he had taken the night before, of Luma, smiling slightly, wrapped in her warm blanket. He placed it gently on the towel, then he walked back inside. The alien mother came that night. Her legs gave out halfway to the food. She crawled forward with trembling arms. She didn't touch the photo at first. She was scared to look. But when she did, her hand flew to her chest. Luma. Warm. Smiling. The mother broke. She clutched the photo to her chest and wept openly under the dark sky, and for the first time in weeks, she ate. Not to survive, but to stay. Inside the house, Mark whispered to himself, "She's close, too close to keep pretending I don't see her." He looked at Luma, who slept peacefully, her tiny hand resting on his chest. Then he looked outside again, not in fear, but with hope. The woman with hollow eyes. It was just before dawn when Mark heard the noise. Not a cry, not a knock. It was a thud, like something had collapsed just outside his door. He grabbed a blanket and rushed outside barefoot. Rain was falling again, soft but cold. The sky was still dark, and there, on his front steps, lay a figure, curled up, shaking, soaked through. She was the thinnest living creature he had ever seen. Her skin was a pale purple, now turning gray. Her ribs pushed out sharply under her skin. Her arms were covered in scars, and old ones and new. Her long silver hair stuck to her face like wet threads. Her lips were cracked. Her eyes were half open, glowing faintly like dying embers. She didn't move, just breathed. Barely. Mark knelt beside her. He didn't speak. He just wrapped the blanket around her gently. Her eyes fluttered and focused. On him. For a second, she panicked. Her body jerked weakly. She tried to push him away, mumbling something in her own language. But her strength gave out. He said softly, "It's okay. You don't have to run anymore." And then he whispered what mattered most. "She's inside, safe, waiting for you." The alien woman blinked. Her lips tried to form words, but only one came through. "Baby." Mark nodded. "Yes." "Luma." He carried her inside. She weighed almost nothing. He placed her on the couch and turned up the heat. Then he brought dry clothes, soft ones, and a towel. She tried to sit up but couldn't. Her body trembled too much. Mark knelt beside her again and held a cup of warm soup. At first she refused it. Her pride flickered in her eyes. But hunger was stronger. She drank slowly, then took a bite of bread, and another, then suddenly grabbed it with both hands and began eating fast, like she hadn't tasted food in years. Tears slipped down her face. Mark didn't interrupt. He just sat quietly. And then a sound came from the hallway. Tiny feet, tiny clicks. Luma, wrapped in her baby blanket, crawling toward the couch. The alien mother turned sharply. Her body reacted before her mind. She reached out. She cried softly, and when her child reached her arms, she let out a long, aching breath. A sound that wasn't a word, but meant everything. Luma rested her tiny head against her mother's chest. The alien woman held her so tightly, Mark was afraid she might break the child. But Luma didn't cry. She just curled into her mother, safe again. For a while, the house was silent. Only the hum of the heater and the soft sound of rain tapping the windows. Then, the mother spoke. Her voice was dry and broken. "You not take her?" Mark shook his head. "No, I'm not here to take her from you. I'm here to help." She stared at him, blinking slowly. Her eyes were full of pain and disbelief. He said gently, "You've been watching every night, haven't you?" She nodded once. "I watch her. Breathe." She held Luma tighter and whispered, "She is in my life." Mark smiled sadly. "I know." That night he gave her the guest room. She didn't want to sleep in the bed at first. She curled up on the floor with Luma beside her, holding her daughter like she was still afraid someone might steal her. Mark placed a fresh set of clothes near her, food, water, and a heater, then closed the door without another word. But outside, the world was already beginning to whisper. Someone had seen her collapse on his steps. Someone had heard her cries, and in a colony that feared aliens. Kindness came with a price. She wasn't always this way. She woke before the sun. Her arms were still wrapped tightly around her daughter Luma, who slept peacefully against her chest. The warm room, the soft floor, the clean blanket, it all felt unreal. Like a dream, too, good to trust. For a moment, the alien mother didn't move. She just stared at the ceiling, then slowly, her mind drifted back. Her name was Saralyn. Once, long ago, before the hunger, before the dirt, before the cage, she had been born in a noble family on a distant planet called Virella, a place of green clouds, golden rivers, and music that floated through the trees. She wore silks. She dined on sweet fruits. She had books, education, respect. She had a mate, gentle, strong, and proud. And then, one day, he didn't return. War came fast. Ships filled the sky. Explosions rained on the towers. Her people had no weapons, no warning. They were taken, not for land, but for labor, for trade. Saralyn was captured while shielding her sister's child. She never saw her home again. She had been sold from one hand to another, from cages to work camps, from dark rooms to filthy markets. When she discovered she was carrying a child, her new owner tried to have her removed. Too weak now, they said. No use. She escaped during a delivery stop on a human colony. She ran barefoot, pregnant, bleeding, into the sewers beneath Sector 12. She gave birth alone. No light. No doctor, no help. Only her own trembling hands and a piece of cloth she tore from her old uniform. That cloth was still wrapped around Luma when Mark found her. Now, in the quiet safety of his home, Saralyn lay beside her child and whispered, "I wasn't always like this," and she had to remember that, because soon she would need to be strong again. Mark knocked gently on the door, holding a tray. "I brought food." Saralyn sat up, startled. She still flinched when he entered, her eyes sharp like a hunted animal. But she didn't run. She didn't scream. Instead, she nodded once. Mark smiled and set the tray down. "I made something soft for your stomach," he said. "You haven't eaten real food in a long time." She stared at the soup, the bread, and the sliced fruit. Her eyes welled up again. "Why?" she whispered. Mark paused. "Why what?" She looked down. "Why help me? We are trash to your people." Mark sat down slowly on the other side of the room. "My people don't speak for me," he said. "You're not trash. I saw a mother risk everything to save her child. That's not trash, that's strength." Saralyn lowered her head, silent. Then, in a soft voice, she said, "My name is Saralyn." Mark nodded. "I'm Mark, and that's a beautiful name." As days passed, Saralyn began to speak more. Broken English, simple words. But her story came through. And each night she sat beside Luma as she slept and whispered soft words in her native tongue. Songs of home, lullabies from a world that was now only memory. Mark listened from outside the room sometimes. He never interrupted. He just kept bringing meals, soft blankets, and quiet smiles. But peace doesn't last forever. One afternoon, Mark returned from the market with medicine and noticed 2 men watching his house, not neighbors, not friendly, just staring. When Mark caught their eyes, they looked away, but didn't leave. That night, as Saralyn folded Luma's new clothes, she looked at Mark and asked, "We must leave soon. Yes?" Mark didn't answer right away. He looked out the window, then back at her. "No," he said. "You're safe here." Saralyn stared at him with hollow, tired eyes. "I've heard that before," she whispered. "It never lasts. Word spreads, and trouble follows a week past." The house grew warmer. Luma giggled now. Her eyes sparkled when Mark made silly faces. Her small hands grabbed at spoons and blankets. Her skin had color again. Life had returned to her body, and to Saralyn's too. For the first time, Saralyn stood without falling. She helped Mark wash the dishes, fold laundry, and even cleaned the floors by hand. She still moved slowly. Her bones still ached, but each day she pushed a little more. For Luma, and for herself. But peace was never meant to last. One evening, a neighbor knocked. Mark opened the door with a cautious smile. It was Mr. Tenson, from 2 houses down. He was holding a half-burnt paper flyer in his hand. "I don't want trouble," the man said, voice low. "But people are talking. That thing you brought in, they say it's illegal, a danger." Mark's smile faded. "She's not a thing. She has a name. Saralyn. And she's done nothing wrong." Tenson looked nervous. "Well, someone reported. They think you're hiding a fugitive alien. The patrol's coming, maybe not tonight, but soon." Then the man turned and walked away without another word. Mark closed the door slowly. He stood there in silence, then turned toward the hallway. Saralyn was there, holding Luma. Her eyes said it all. She had heard everything. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just clutched her child tighter. Mark stepped closer. "You don't have to run again," he said. But Saralyn shook her head. "I must." "No." She looked up. "They will not knock first. They will break the door. They will take her, and I will never see her again." Mark's hands curled into fists. "That's not going to happen." That night, Mark couldn't sleep. He sat in his old workshop, digging through storage boxes, wires, cloaks, ID cards. Old tech from his younger days as a mechanic. He used to work in border repair. He knew things about colony systems, things most forgot. By sunrise, he had made a plan. The next morning, Saralyn awoke to a backpack filled with food, medicine, and wrapped clothing. She found a small scanner device too, one that could jam tracking signals for a short time. Mark stood by the door. If it comes to it, he said, this will help you disappear. But I'm hoping we don't need it. Saralyn looked at the bag, then at him. Her voice was soft. You would risk everything. For someone not even your kind. Mark walked over to Luma's crib and smiled down at the baby. I don't care what kind she is, he said. She's alive because of you, and you're alive because you kept fighting. That's all I need to know. But the peace shattered that afternoon. A patrol vehicle landed just outside. Big, loud, silver and black. Neighbors peeked out windows. Doors locked. Children were pulled inside. 2 armed officers stepped out. Mark opened the door before they knocked. Behind him, Saralyn stood still, holding Luma close. Mark Hollis? One officer asked. Yes. We received a report. An undocumented alien in your home. You are required to allow inspection. Mark stepped forward. There is someone here. A mother. A child. They've done nothing wrong. She's not a threat. The officer didn't blink. We are not here to argue. Stand aside. Then, a small voice. Stop. It came from Saralyn. She stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately. Her hair was brushed. Her clothes were clean. She stood taller than she had in weeks. I will speak, she said. I am Saralyn of Virella. My child was born in this colony. She has harmed no one. I have harmed no one. The officers looked at each other. Then the second one said, That may be, but you are not registered. You are not legal here. Saralyn took a deep breath. Then tell your commanders. They may take me, but not her. Mark stepped in front of her now. You'll have to go through me first. A moment of silence passed, then the officer's communicator buzzed. He stepped back, answered it. A voice came through, sharp, fast, commanding. Then, silence. He turned back. There's been a change, he said. Your case has drawn attention. He looked at Luma, then Saralyn. You're being placed under review. For asylum. Mark blinked. What? The officer nodded. Someone filed a protection request on your behalf. A neighbor, maybe. Or someone higher. He turned and began walking away. We'll be in touch. The patrol vehicle lifted off and disappeared into the sky. Inside the house. Saralyn sat down slowly, holding Luma close. Her hands shook, but her eyes were clear. Mark sat beside her. I told you, he said, smiling gently. You're not alone anymore. Your family. Now it had been 3 days since the patrol left. 3 days since the door was almost broken down. 3 days since Saralyn spoke in a loud voice. For the first time since her world fell apart. She still didn't fully believe. Turtum. She sat on the edge of the couch, watching the sunlight come through the window. Luma slept peacefully beside her, small fingers curled like stars. Mark brought her tea, as he always did. Not with pity, but with quiet kindness, respect. They hadn't spoken much since that day, not because there was nothing to say, but because sometimes silence said everything. Saralyn looked stronger now. She walked without trembling. She even stepped outside, yesterday just for a minute to feel the wind. She watched a bird fly past the rooftop. For a second she almost smiled. Almost. But deep inside, fear still lingered. What if they come back? She whispered to herself. What if it was just a delay? Mark heard her. He was working on a small power unit near the table. He put down his tools and turned to her. If they come back, he said, they'll see what I see. Saralyn looked at him confused. A mother, brave, honest, gentle. One who never gave up, even when the world told her to. He walked over to her and sat beside Luma. This place used to feel empty, he said. Just a roof and 4 walls. But since you two came in, it feels alive. Saralyn's lips parted slightly. She looked down at her child, then at Mark. She whispered, Why me? Mark didn't smile. He looked her in the eyes and said, "Because I saw you before you saw me. You were standing in the rain, watching your child, hungry, broken, but not leaving. That's the strongest thing I've ever seen." That evening, something happened. A woman knocked on the door. Not a patrol officer. Not a neighbor with complaints. She was tall, with brown skin and silver hair tied neatly behind her. Her voice was soft but firm. "I'm from the Protection Committee. Someone filed a formal request for asylum for you and your daughter." Sarah Lynn froze. Mark stepped in. "I did," he said. The woman smiled. "We reviewed the recordings, the medical reports, the patrol's visit." She looked at Sarah Lynn. "You qualify for a special human aid program. If you wish, you and your child can stay." Sarah Lynn's breath caught. The woman continued, "You'll need to complete a few steps, medical checks, translation sessions, and registration, but it's official now." Then she looked at both of them and added gently, "You're safe." After the woman left, Sarah Lynn stood still. Mark waited, watching her. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She just walked slowly over to the photo he had taken, the one of Luma smiling. And for the first time, she touched it not with trembling hands, but with steady fingers. Later that night, after putting Luma to sleep, Sarah Lynn knocked softly on Mark's room. He opened the door. She didn't step inside. She just stood there, her silver hair glowing. In the hallway light, her voice quiet but full. "I cannot repay you," she said. "Not with words, not with work." Mark shook his head. "You don't have to repay me." She looked down. "I still feel like I don't belong, like this will be taken any moment." Mark took a breath, then gently said, "Then let's make it real." Sarah Lynn looked up, confused. Mark reached toward the small drawer by the door and pulled out a necklace. A simple charm hung from it, the shape of a star and a small moon. "I bought this a long time ago," he said, "but I didn't know who it was for." He placed it in her hand. "I think it belongs to you now." Sarah Lynn stared at it. She whispered, "You mean we can stay?" Mark smiled. "Not just stay." He looked at her with kind, steady eyes. "You're family now." Luma stirred in her sleep that night, but didn't cry. The stars outside twinkled, a little brighter, and for the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Sarah Lynn didn't sleep curled in fear. She slept upright, holding her child, in a real bed, in a real home, with a future she never believed she'd have.